Hello everybody and welcome to episode 3 of How to Build a Computer from Scratch. I showed you all the essential logic gates that you'll need for episode 3. I also showed you the extreme basics to have binary algebra. Although it's hardly algebra, I'm not showing you how to simplify or anything, but with time you can learn because I'm not very good at it. So what's next? What do we have on the computer agenda? Well, let's think. What is the purpose of a computer? Historically, computers were women who did complex calculations. Being able to do calculations is kind of the most important part. What sets it apart is not only that it can do math, but it can also do some logic. So now you may be thinking, how can we do math with the logic gates that we currently know? As logic gates seem to be quite simple. We can only flip switches, and then that determines an outcome. But maybe that's all we need. Let's analyze how we count. When we count from 0 to 9, they're all the unique numbers. Once we count one higher than 9, it recycles our numbers. Well, with computers, we have on or off, and we can actually represent these with numbers still. We just use 0 and 1. The computer doesn't see this as anything other than on or off, but we can put meaning to these numbers. Let's convert this to our number system. We call this decimal. 0000 is 0. 0001 is 1. This is where things become different. 0010 is 2. Can you guess what 0011 is? That's right, it's 3. That's all this is. We can count as high as we want. All we have to do is just add more zeros and ones. Let me rewrite this. Binary is pretty simple. We actually see a pattern here. Every new position is 2 to the power of that number. We start with the power of 0, and then we just keep counting up. Similarly, this is similar to how our counting system works too. Instead of 2, it is just 10. Computers understand binary. When you are building your first computer, you must think, what binary position or value are we working with? For everything we have been working on, it has been binary position 2 to the 0th power. So actually, just a 0 or 1 in decimal. When we do math, we must match each value appropriately. We can't combine 2 to the power of 4 with 2 to the power of 1. This isn't how computers work. How do they work? How do you math with binary? Let's look at addition. 0010 plus 0001. This would be 0011, with 0010 being 2, and 0001 being 1. That's a mouthful, but hang with me. 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. We know that. And 0011 is equivalent to 3. So let's try something more complicated. 0110 plus 0011. You start from the right and you move left. So 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 10. So we just draw a 0 and carry that. Now we have 1 plus 1 plus 0. This leaves us with 10 again. Lastly, we have 1 plus 0 plus 0. This leaves us with only 1. The answer is 1001. So let's convert everything to decimal to make sure we're doing this correctly. 0110 is 6, and 0011 is 3. We know that 6 plus 3 is 9. So what do we have here? 1001. That is equal to 9. We can also subtract binary numbers, and it works exactly how you think. 0010 minus 0001 is 0001. We need to borrow from the left. I'm not going to go in depth on this topic though, because this is not really how our computer is going to do subtraction. It's just kind of like a waste of time right now. All right. We can talk about how the computer does math now. So let's look at this truth table. This one looks different. We have 2 outputs. In this case, we can just single out each output. I'm going to solve for ones. Let's look at this one. 1 and 1 equals 1. That sounds like the AND gate, so that's pretty easy. Next, we have not A and B. The next row is A and not B. If we recall last episode, this is the exclusive ORs logic gate, so we can go ahead and just use that. Let's think about the solution. For output 1, this uses an XOR gate. So we connect A and B to a XOR gate and then feed that to output 1. Next is output 2. All we need to do is connect A and B to an AND gate and then feed that to output 2. It's pretty simple. So what's happening here? Value A and B are both 0001. So when we add 0001 and 0001, we actually get 0010. This is what's called a half adder. This is neat, but it's actually missing something very important. This half adder is missing an extra part. We are missing what's called the carry bit. This is what allows us to use both of those bits. There's actually something more important about this that you'll see in a minute. Take a look at this. We can solve this with logic gates, or we can just use the half adder that we just created. When we make a new component, it's often helpful to not reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this and explain why this is helpful. Here we have two half adders and then we have an OR. Although this isn't the most efficient way to make this, I think it's easier to understand. Earlier, I said it is very important to know which binary value or position we are working with. All of these inputs are 2 to the power of 0. The output will actually be a 2 to the power of 0 and a 2 to the power of 1. This means that of these half adders, we must be mindful of what position we're working with. We can use our first half adder to add the first two values. We use the second half adder to add up our carry. We see that the first half adder feeds into the second. This is what allows us to add up all three numbers. This first value on the left is a pass-through. This could be value A or value B turned on. If both are on, it won't pass through to the second half adder. If value A or B is turned on but not the other value, and C is on, this adds both of those up and makes it to the correct place of the 2 to the first power bit. Now notice, I haven't been calling this the 2 to the second power bit or the 2 to the first power bit, because that would be odd, first of all, but this isn't what this component is. This is called an adder. This is because it works with any value. It doesn't have to be 2 to the power of 2 or 2 to the power of 1. This can be 2 to the power of 3 and 2 to the power of 2. Let me rewrite the inputs and outputs appropriately. As you can see, this is number 1 and this is number 2. And this right here is the carry in value. What is carry? I know this might look pretty complex, but it's actually just two full adders tied up together. We tie the correct binary positions together into the same full adder. Note, the carry is just the value from the previous binary adder. When I do 0, 1 plus 1, 1, these 2 to the power of 0 numbers are added together and become a 2 to the power of 1. When it does this, it's getting carried to the next set. So now what? We just did two full adders together. Is this how we add up 4-bit numbers? That is actually correct. If we'd like to add 4-bit numbers together, we just use 4 adders. If we'd like to add 8-bit numbers together, we just use 8 full adders. It's pretty simple. With this adder setup, we can do math with 2 4-bit numbers. It might not be super impressive, but I think it's pretty neat. This means we can add two numbers all the way up to 15. What would this look like in person with just logic gates? So I'm sorry for the low quality footage in this video. I made a 4-bit adder on a breadboard with 2 AND gate ICs, 1 OR gate IC, and 2 XOR gate ICs. ICs make things really neat and easy. If you wanted, you could build all the logic gates using transistors, but just know that is going to be very time consuming. It's not impossible, but it will just take lots of time. Something I did want to point out is do some research on what ICs you're using for your logic gates. The 74L series is what I'm using. These are TTL chips. By default, these chips will have a high input, even if nothing is connected. This can be a very difficult thing when starting out. This was difficult for me to figure out myself. A simple solution is just wiring up a 10K resistor to each individual input, but there's actually more than one way of working around this. In the case of using switches, or in my case, DIP switches, you can connect the DIP switch to ground and have them all turned on. When you turn the switch off, the output will be high, thus acting like an on output. It sounds confusing, but it works quite well. I hope you guys learned something new. I'm putting a lot of effort and time into these videos and I'm honestly really enjoying it. Making the reels is super fun, but I still find making the YouTube videos a little bit more enjoyable. I'm hoping that with each new video, I can improve the quality just a little bit more to make things a little easier for viewing. As for the schematics for the 4-bit adder, I don't quite have that done yet, but you can find it in the description or the comments whenever I have that uploaded. If you don't have any ICs that I use in this video, you can buy them off of Amazon if you want them quick. But if you're willing to wait a little longer, you can also buy them off of FutureLec or AliExpress. I do suggest buying off of AliExpress or FutureLec, especially if you have more time, as it will be much cheaper. I will be watching the comments, so if you guys have any questions, I'll be looking out for those. I guess I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye! That's Markiplier's outro.